have you ever really stopped and wondered what's actually in your dog's food ball? We're always told that dry kibble is the gold standard, the best thing for them. But today, we're going to explore a completely different way of thinking, an approach that gets back to a dog's natural, ancestral roots.
So, let me start by asking you a question. We scoop it into their bowl every single day, but what really happens to that dry, processed kibble once your dog actually eats it? Well, there's a fascinating and honestly a kind of alarming little experiment that gives us a pretty big clue.
So check this out. Someone took a cup of high-end kibble and just added some water to it, basically simulating what happens inside a dog's stomach. And almost instantly, those dry little pellets just swelled up into this mushy, huge paste. Think about it. That expansion needs a ton of moisture, which kind of helps explain why so many dogs on kibble seem desperately thirsty right after they eat.
Yeah, that was my reaction too. When you see it laid out like this, it's really hard not to wonder if there's a better, more natural way to feed our best friends. And for a lot of people, the answer to that question is a diet that looks absolutely nothing like this.
So, let's talk about that alternative. It's called the BARF diet. And I know, the name might sound a little weird, but the philosophy behind it is actually incredibly simple. It's all about feeding dogs the kind of food their bodies were biologically designed to eat in the first place. So BARF is actually an acronym. It stands for Biologically Appropriate Raw Food. The whole idea here is just to get as close as we possibly can to the ancestral diet of canines. We're talking fresh meat, bone, organs, whole foods, without all the fillers, the heavy carbs, and the intense processing that you find in kibble.
Okay, so how do you actually do it? This is the part where I think a lot of people get intimidated, but really the core of the BARF diet boils down to this super simple, easy-to-remember blueprint. It's called the 80-10-10 rule.
Look, the entire foundation of this whole diet is just this simple ratio. 80% muscle meat, 10% edible bone, and 10% organ meat. That's it. Those are the three essential need-to-haves. If you get this balance right, you've pretty much created a complete species-appropriate meal.
So what do these building blocks actually look like in practice? Well, from muscle meat, you're thinking things like chicken, beef, lamb, or goat. And really, the more variety, the better. The edible bone part often just comes along with the meat, like in chicken quarters or pork ribs. And for organ meat, you're looking for those nutrient powerhouses, things like liver, kidney, or beef tripe. These are absolutely crucial for getting all those vitamins and minerals.
All right, so how much do you feed? A really great starting point is about 2% of your dog's ideal body weight each day. So for a 50-pound dog, that works out to exactly 1 pound of raw food daily. Simple, right? And of course, you can adjust that up or down depending on your dog's energy level and body condition.
Okay, now that we have the blueprint and we know the portions, let's actually put a meal together. It's honestly a lot like building a healthy meal for yourself. You just start with your base and then add in the other key components. The whole process is really straightforward. You start with your base, which is the muscle meat. Now, if that meat doesn't have bone in it, say like a steak, you'll need to add a separate source of edible bone, like some ribs. Then, you just mix in your smaller portion of organ meats. And finally, you can top it off with a few optional extras for a nice little nutritional boost. Now, while that 80-10-10 ratio is the essential foundation, you can totally add some optional nice-to-haves for an extra nutritional kick. We're talking things like whole sardines for omega-3s, an egg with the crushed shell for extra calcium, or even some coconut oil. But the key thing here is not to get bogged down with all this stuff at the start. Just focus on the core ratio first.
So why go to all this trouble? What's the big payoff? Well, people who advocate for raw feeding, they report a whole list of really tangible health improvements in their dogs.
Owners who make the switch often see this huge range of improvements: shinier coats, easier weight management, and even better joint health. But one of the most immediate and, let's be honest, noticeable changes is in their digestion. This often leads to, smaller, firmer, and much less frequent poop. I absolutely love this quote because it just makes the point so perfectly. The logic is simple. If a dog is getting rid of almost as much waste as the food they took in, how much nutrition are they actually absorbing? With a raw diet, the waste is tiny because their body is using almost everything in the food. It's pure fuel.
Now look, all of this information is great, but the absolute best way to understand the difference is to see it for yourself. And a lot of advocates suggest a really simple experiment, just a 30-day challenge.
So I'll leave you with this final thought. By switching to a biologically appropriate diet, even just for a short time, could you see a real transformation in your dog's energy, in their health, and just their overall happiness? Based on everything we've seen today, the answer might just surprise you.